Laura sat alone in her spacious, meticulously decorated suburban home, the silence of the empty rooms echoing her inner desolation. Once a vibrant household filled with laughter and the soft hum of everyday life, tonight the house felt cavernous and still. Her husband, David, was away on a business trip, another of those endless journeys that had become all too common, leaving her with an abundance of time and a profound sense of isolation. Before we start, thank you for coming to my channel. Your participation is my happiness. Let me know where you are and what time it is now. Okay, now let's get into the story. Each tick of the antique clock in the hallway served as a reminder of the passing moments, stretching into long hours that magnified the loneliness within. Laura's days had once been shared, filled with whispered conversations and subtle glances that spoke of a mutual life, but now the silence left her with nothing but memories and unanswered questions. As dusk settled outside, bathing the quiet streets in a soft, fading light, she couldn't help but feel that something essential was missing. In the solitude of her elegant living room, Laura's eyes wandered over familiar photographs and cherished mementos that now seemed to belong to a life half remembered. Despite her success and the outward trappings of a perfect suburban existence, a quiet void had slowly taken root in her heart, a void born from years of neglect and unfulfilled emotional needs. The stark contrast between the vibrant world outside her window and the muted stillness inside only deepened her introspection. Tonight, as the soft glow of the city lights began to infiltrate the calm of her home, a restlessness stirred within her. It was a subtle, persistent yearning for connection, for passion, and for a glimpse of the life she once dreamed of. A life where every moment crackled with possibility and desire. In the quiet of her solitude, Laura found herself reflecting on the choices that had led her to this point. Was it the relentless pursuit of a successful career? The comfortable routine of a stable marriage that over time had muted her spirit? Or perhaps the sacrifices made in the name of duty had cost her the very spark that made life worth living? As she sat by the window, the cool night air mingling with her thoughts, Laura's mind began to wander toward memories of a past when love and excitement still played their vibrant parts in her life. In that reflective moment, an unspoken question surfaced. Could the emptiness that now defined her world be the catalyst for a long overdue change? A chance to rediscover what it truly meant to feel alive. Unbeknownst to her, the coming days would soon set in motion events that would challenge every aspect of her carefully controlled existence, forcing her to confront desires she had long buried beneath the weight of routine and responsibility. After a long evening of restless contemplation, Laura reached a turning point. The void inside her, amplified by David's absence, had grown impossible to ignore. With trembling resolve, she retrieved her phone and sent a discreet message to Ethan, a man from her past whose quiet presence had once stirred her soul. Her words were simple yet laden with unspoken desire. "Are you free tonight? I'd really like to see you." It wasn't long before the doorbell rang. Laura's heart pounded as she opened the door to find Ethan standing there, his familiar smile and gentle eyes immediately easing the lingering loneliness. Dressed casually yet with an effortless charm, he radiated a comforting warmth that contrasted sharply with the cold silence of her empty home. Their greeting was tender, a slow, reassuring embrace that seemed to momentarily dissolve the distance between them. In that brief moment, the polished veneer of her suburban life gave way to an atmosphere of intimate possibility. As they stepped into the softly lit living room, the glow of a solitary table lamp cast golden hues and dancing shadows across the room, creating a private sanctuary far removed from the constraints of her usual existence. They settled onto the plush sofa, where conversation soon flowed naturally. Words turned into shared glances, and glances gradually became lingering touches. When Ethan reached for a glass of water, his hand brushed lightly against Laura's, sending a jolt of electricity coursing through her. That accidental contact awakened a deep-seated longing, one that had been quietly building in the solitude of her days. In the gentle cadence of their conversation, memories of past joys mingled with the bittersweet ache of present loneliness. Each smile, every tender look, built a bridge between the woman Laura had once been and the one she hoped to rediscover. Despite the thrill of their forbidden encounter, a subtle undercurrent of inevitability began to take shape, a silent reminder that the intimacy they shared was as dangerous as it was liberating. For that evening, within the warm cocoon of her home, Laura allowed herself to surrender to the comforting familiarity of Ethan's presence. In his eyes she saw a reflection of the passion and hope she had long thought lost. A spark that promised, even if only for a few fleeting hours, the possibility of healing and renewal. In the soft, ambient glow of the living room, the space between Laura and Ethan seemed to dissolve into an electric silence. As they sat side by side on the plush sofa, their conversation slowly melted into a shared look, a spark that ignited the air around them. Ethan's fingertips lightly grazed Laura's hand as he reached for her glass, and the simple contact sent a tremor of anticipation rippling through her. That gentle brush awakened a cascade of sensations. The smooth warmth of his skin, the delicate pressure of his touch, and a silent invitation that beckoned her to surrender to a long-suppressed desire. Without a word, their eyes locked in mutual understanding. Laura leaned in, and their lips met in a tender, exploratory kiss that quickly deepened with passion. Each kiss was a quiet dialogue of longing. A soft press of lips, the teasing intermingling of breaths, and an embrace that grew firmer with every heartbeat. The rhythm of their intimacy was both gentle and insistent. Ethan's hand caressed the curve of her shoulder, trailing slowly down her arm, while Laura's fingertips traced subtle patterns along his back. Every brush of skin, every whispered sigh, resonated with the promise of rediscovered passion, filling the room with a heady mix of warmth and vulnerability. As the kiss lingered, their embrace tightened, and the world outside faded into insignificance. The delicate interplay of soft touches and lingering caresses built an intimate cocoon around them, a sanctuary where time itself seemed to pause. In that shared moment, with the muted light casting dancing shadows around them, Laura and Ethan discovered a fleeting escape from loneliness. Their physical connection was a silent testament to the desires that had long remained dormant, now stirred into life by the power of a single transformative touch. Thank you for listening to the story so far. Your encouragement means a lot to me. Please comment and share your thoughts here. I love you and I am so grateful to have you on this journey with me to explore the story further. In the intimate stillness of Laura's softly lit living room, the air grew heavier with anticipation as their shared desire reached a fevered pitch. The lingering taste of their earlier kisses had left an indelible mark on their souls, and now the space between them seemed charged with an almost tangible heat. Ethan's hand, emboldened by the silent language of desire, wandered with deliberate tenderness along the small of Laura's back. Each caress ignited shivers along her skin, as if every nerve ending were alight with the promise of forgotten ecstasies. Laura, her eyes fluttering closed in the gentle throes of passion, arched slightly into his touch. With a slow, deliberate motion, she allowed herself to lean into the warmth of his embrace, surrendering to the crescendo of sensations that pulsed between them. Their kisses deepened with an urgency that spoke of both rediscovery and a desperate reclaiming of long-suppressed dreams. The intensity of their connection was heightened by the rhythm of whispered breaths and the soft rustle of fabric, as clothing became a barrier slowly shed in favor of bare, honest intimacy. In that moment, every gentle press of Ethan's lips against hers was a silent soliloquy of longing. Each kiss, each tender exploration, mapping a journey into the depths of vulnerability and unspoken desire. As their embrace grew more fervent, the boundaries of time and space blurred. The soft glow from the lamp danced along the curves of their intertwined bodies, creating a play of shadows that mimicked the delicate interplay of their emotions. Laura's hands roamed with an innate need to feel, to touch the parts of Ethan that echoed the passion of youth and the promise of a newfound liberation. Every caress, every soft murmur of admiration, wove a tapestry of shared intimacy that was both exhilarating and exquisitely dangerous. In that sacred moment, the outside world, its rules, its expectations vanished entirely. Only the tender urgency of the present remained, a blissful union of two souls daring to reclaim a fragment of their lost vitality. The crescendo of their passion reached a peak where every sigh, every whispered endearment, resonated with the unspoken acknowledgement that this fleeting indulgence was as much an act of self-healing as it was an embrace of forbidden desire. The warm afterglow of their shared passion lingered in the dimly lit room. Laura lay in Ethan's embrace, her fingers lazily tracing invisible patterns across his bare shoulder, her mind a haze of lingering sensations and unspoken emotions. The rhythmic rise and fall of his chest, the faint scent of his skin, the way his fingertips still skimmed lightly over her back, it all felt so intoxicatingly right in the moment. And yet, beneath the intoxicating warmth, a quiet unease stirred. Ethan turned his head, pressing a slow, lingering kiss to her temple. "You okay?" His voice was gentle, tinged with something deeper. Concern maybe, or an unspoken question he was too afraid to voice. Laura hesitated before answering. "Yeah," she whispered, though the words felt like a lie. She wanted to believe it. That this was the answer to everything she had been missing. That this night had filled the void inside her. And in some ways it had. But now, as the heat of their embrace began to cool, reality crept back in like an unwelcome guest. The weight of what she had done, the marriage she had betrayed, the man who had trusted her. It all pressed down on her chest, making it suddenly difficult to breathe. Ethan seemed to sense her shift, the way her body tensed slightly against him. He reached out, tilting her chin so she would look at him. "Laura." She swallowed hard, searching his eyes for something. Reassurance, justification, anything to quiet the storm rising inside her. But what she saw instead was a reflection of her own uncertainty. "I should go," she murmured, sitting up and reaching for her robe. Ethan hesitated, watching her with unreadable eyes before nodding. He sat up as well, raking a hand through his tousled hair. "If that's what you want." She didn't answer. Because the truth was she didn't know what she wanted. As she walked him to the door, their fingers brushed one last time. A fleeting, uncertain touch that felt more like a goodbye than either of them were willing to admit. And then with a lingering glance, he was gone. Laura stood in the doorway for a long moment, staring out into the empty night, the cool air prickling against her flushed skin. She had spent the evening chasing something she thought would set her free. Something that had once made her feel alive. But now, as she stepped back into her quiet house, her marital home, she couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that, instead of finding herself, she had only lost something even more precious. And she had no idea if she would ever be able to get it back. The morning had barely broken when Laura, still reeling from the emotional tumult of the night, stepped back into her quiet home. Every step she took was heavy with a mix of remorse and fragile hope. Hope that perhaps the passionate escape of the previous hours could somehow soothe the deep loneliness that had plagued her. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. As she reached the foyer, the soft click of a key turning in the lock froze her in place. David, her husband, had returned home earlier than expected. In that suspended moment, the familiar scent of his aftershave and the sound of his measured footsteps cut through the stillness like a shard of glass. David entered the living room with cautious steps, his eyes widening as they took in the subtle, but unmistakable clues of a night that had not been spent in solitude. A disarrayed cushion here, a casually abandoned robe there, whispered silent confessions of what had transpired. In an instant, the air thickened with a crushing blend of shock, betrayal, and unspoken hurt. "Laura, what is this?" David's voice, usually so calm and assuring, trembled with disbelief as it broke the silence. The question hung in the air. A desperate cry for an explanation that could never fully be given. In that heart-stopping moment, Laura's defenses crumbled. Her eyes welled with tears as she faced the reality of her actions and the man whose trust she had so dearly shattered. Words caught in her throat as David's gaze searched hers. A gaze that mirrored both a profound sorrow and a simmering anger. The remnants of the passionate night with Ethan, the soft warmth of shared intimacy, the lingering touch of fingertips, now stood exposed before the stark light of day. The living room, once a haven of quiet comfort, had transformed into the stage for an agonizing confrontation. Laura's heart pounded in her ears, each beat a reminder of the pain she had unwittingly inflicted. She tried to speak, to justify the aching void that had driven her into forbidden arms, but the weight of the moment silenced her. In that raw and painful exchange, the room filled with a heavy, unbearable quiet. A silence that spoke louder than any words of apology could. David's expression was a tapestry of hurt and disbelief, his eyes reflecting the collapse of trust and the shattering of their shared past. The confrontation was not just about the clandestine encounter. It was the unveiling of deeper fractures that had long festered in the quiet corners of their marriage. As seconds stretched into an eternity, both found themselves caught in the aftermath of a moment that would forever alter the course of their lives. The remnants of passion and secrecy now clashed with the harsh reality of their broken promises. In that charged silence, the painful truth stood revealed. A fragile life of comfort and routine had been irrevocably disturbed, leaving them at the precipice of a choice. one that would demand either the painful work of rebuilding trust or the irrevocable step towards separate paths of healing. In the quiet aftermath of that shattering morning, the house felt unbearably hollow, a space haunted by echoes of betrayal and the heavy silence of broken promises. David had left shortly after the confrontation, his footsteps fading down the driveway, leaving Laura to face the wreckage of what once was a life she thought was secure. Left alone with the weight of her actions, Laura wandered through the empty rooms as if in a daze. Each familiar corner now bore the scars of regret and loss. In the living room, where moments ago the air had crackled with confrontation, she sank into the worn armchair, its cushions cradling her as tears traced silent paths down her cheeks. The house, once a sanctuary, had become a solemn mirror reflecting her fractured soul. As the day unfolded with the muted light of a reluctant dawn, Laura began to confront the truth of her own heart. The reckless escape into forbidden passion had been a desperate bid to fill a void born not just from loneliness, but from years of feeling unseen and unfulfilled. Yet now, stripped of its allure, that same passion revealed its harsh cost. The intimacy shared with Ethan, once a balm to her neglected spirit, had instead exposed the fragile underpinnings of her marriage and her own inner vulnerabilities. In the stillness of that early morning, with the distant hum of the neighborhood and the soft whisper of the wind through bare branches, Laura resolved to embark on a journey of healing. It wasn't an easy path to tread. The road ahead promised raw pain, soul-searching, and countless moments of reflection. But she understood that only by confronting the depths of her own longing and regret could she hope to rebuild something genuine out of the ruins. There, amidst the quiet devastation, a spark of determination began to glow. Laura reached for an old journal, its pages a repository of her thoughts and dreams from years past, dreams that had been silenced under the weight of daily routine and unspoken compromise. With a trembling hand, she opened to a blank page, and in that moment, the act of writing became her first step toward redemption. As the day brightened imperceptibly, Laura's mind wandered to the possibility of renewal, a future where pain could be transmuted into wisdom, where mistakes might serve as the foundation for a more honest life. Though the journey ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, she felt a quiet resolve take root. Whether it meant seeking forgiveness, rebuilding a shattered marriage, or learning to love herself anew, the only way forward was to embrace the truth of her own heart and take responsibility for her choices. In that fragile moment of clarity, as the sun's rays began to warm the chill of the morning, Laura understood that this was not an ending but a necessary beginning. With each word she penned in her journal, she laid the first brick in the slow reconstruction of her inner world. A journey toward healing, self-discovery, and the hope of someday reclaiming a life filled with genuine connection and light. And that's it for today's story. I'd love to hear what you think. Leave a comment below and share your feelings. Did you relate to any of the characters? Or if you were in their shoes, what decisions would you make? I'd love to hear from all of you. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. And if you didn't, hit one. Subscribe so you don't miss out on more great content. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day.